Welcome to Qigong Academy podcast, part two. So we record today the episode two, and I asked myself while practicing Wing Chun yesterday or watching the movie afterwards from Ip Man, is there a difference between Qigong and martial arts, or is Qigong even a part of martial arts? So John, what do you would answer to that?
Um, I think that if you look at Qigong in its kind of overarching term, there is regularly a martial influence within Qigong practice. I tend to talk about the idea that there is a mixture of martial, medical, and spiritual within it. And so every single style of Qigong will have a certain mix of those three within it. But the martial aspect tends to be quite stripped back in most Qigong. Um, as somebody who's more interested in the medical and the spiritual, I also find it weirdly frustrating that people who are practicing martial arts end up as Qigong teachers because they kind of they've got this wealth of knowledge around the martial art, but then all the stuff around the spiritual and the medical and the Chinese medicine and the underlying philosophies kind of gets bypassed. So to me, yes, certain Qigongs have got a very martial aspect to them, and others really don't.
Mm, all right. So do you have specific styles of Qigong where you would say there's definitely martial in it?
Um, Years ago, I studied a system that was known as Buchi. Buchi is it was quite well known in the UK and Belgium. And it was interesting when you were exploring Buchi, the guy who founded it, Dr. Shen, um, had taken quite a lot of the classic texts and gone through them and revisited them, and he'd developed his own Tai Chi form. He'd developed his own Qigong form, but the Qigong form was based on a principle of Bin Qi. Bin Qi was negative Qi, and you had
Mm,
to expel negative Qi from the body.
okay.
Um, and it was quite an interesting take. Personally, I think that Buchi is one of the Qigong systems that does not play well with other Qigong systems because the fundamental premises are very different. But it was basically expelling blockages or expelling negativity with a slightly more martial edge. I rather unkindly described it as energetic Dynarod. And in the UK, we've got a company called Dynarod who come and jet out the drains and clear out the crap.
Uh,
Um, and it was like energetic Dynarod to practice. And yeah, it was an interesting one because it kind of was very effective in one aspect to me because it was very good at clearing stuff out. But I think that actually, if we're looking at the health practice and the spiritual practice, we need to have the ability to welcome stuff in as well.
where Qigong kicks in a combination.
Yeah, that's why I think the mix is important. We need techniques to be able to release, but we need to understand what that release is and what the impact of that release is. But then we also need to have something that we do in order to fill that space that we've created by releasing. And it isn't that we need to put something very specific in there, but we can't ignore the space.
Mm, okay. Well, when you say release, or I got from you saying that martial is a good way of releasing, yeah, bad energy or negative energy. So my question would be, what is negative energy?
Oh, sometimes I just hate you, Joe. Um, okay, this again hits problems. There's an idea here of no good, no bad.
But
Um,
you said negative energy, which is a bad, isn't it?
yeah, and yet Vinci is considered negative energy. So negative energy in that sense would be something that is restricting, would be the way that I would probably express it. I say Bucci is not my chosen form. It's something that I only studied for a number of years back in the day. And actually, I always had an issue with this because I don't want to spend my practice looking for problems.
Hmm.
And I think that if you bring the focus onto expelling negative energy, what you're doing is you're prowling around within your body looking for negative stuff. Um, and so that doesn't make sense to me because actually what we should be doing is we should be inhabiting our being in a way of embracing the space and the potential that it has within it, not wandering around looking for something bad to get rid of.
Yeah,
Um,
makes sense.
so yeah, to me, it wasn't a system that particularly worked. But at the same time, I can recognize I've still got lots of stuff that is restrictive that I'd like to get rid of. So maybe I'm just hiding from my own truth. I don't know on that one.
I mean, the interesting part is, so I practiced or started practicing Wing Chun in November last year. So I experienced that there is also the spiritual aspect inside of it. Also this kind of, yeah, almost meditative state, which is just the fundamental thing you need to achieve that you can go on. Yeah, you can practice the choreographical movement kind of thing, but when we start practicing the form, which is the first part of the 1.5 hours every Monday, it's like, yeah, you go through the form, and when you went through the form, then you go again through the form, but on the left leg. Then you go again through the form on the right leg, and you're not when you're not mentally balanced, kind of thing. When you just thought, "Oh, what do I eat afterwards?" Then you will fall definitely. So yeah, okay, that's a little bit of balancing, but also a little bit of focusing and mental health or mental balancing kind of thing. So there, for me, the Qigong aspect kicks definitely in, or whatever it is. Like, yeah, this or that is for me Qigong or a part of Qigong to have this balancing thing. Also in Wing Chun, there is this kind of, okay, I don't attack the person, I just get attacked and react. That's the philosophy I got from it.
Right.
So is it negative energy? Or is the definition of negative energy that I will hurt somebody? That is a question I ask myself.
Yeah. I mean, I still have to cycle back to this idea of there is no good, there is no bad. I remember years ago challenging somebody in an interfaith group I was part of, saying, I don't know what the difference is between good and bad. If I look back on my life and the greatest gifts that I've had have come from what appeared to be very negative things happening. So the greatest learning that I've had is from experiences of difficulty. It's loss of loved ones, loss of property, loss of work. These types of things. In the moment, they feel incredibly negative, but you can turn a negative into something that is deeply nourishing and informative to you. So therefore, is it good? Is it bad? I think that in the moment we can make that assumption, and in the same way as, a certain place for one person could hold a very negative connotation, that same experience for somebody else could be a very positive connotation. I don't think we can really apply the judgment to it.
Mm.
Um, but I think the thing that I find fascinating about this is that, and I have to reflect here, I had a Tai Chi teacher, um, and the Tai Chi teacher was so deeply aware of what was happening in the person standing opposite them that they could disrupt their energy in the middle of a strike. They could spot something going out of balance. Now, I've worked with people, I've worked with martial artists who are very capable of doing this to their students. And that's not real. That's just the student playing the role of the dutiful student and falling over when the teacher goes boo. You know, and unfortunately, it's quite prevalent, and you do see it quite a lot. But this guy, I was deeply cynical, and I went to work with him. But he could honestly do it. His speed of reaction to situations was astonishing. And it raised two things for me that I thought were really good. One of them was that ultimately his level of practice with Tai Chi was deeply aware. His ability to listen was just at a level I'd never experienced before. And that presence, that exists within the internal arts, within the internal martial arts of awareness, I think can never be underestimated. And I think that you're talking to that a little bit when you're talking about meditation. There's kind of, can you quieten down the noise so you can honestly notice what's happening? Is that place of awareness there? Um, and I think that that's a really important part of both of kind of all of these traditions, the ability to create awareness. But then what do you do with that awareness within the martial? You would use that in order to exploit imbalance and knock the person off balance in this particular Tai Chi style that he taught. But weirdly, because he had trained so hard in that, he was incredibly good as a healer because he understood the nature of balance and imbalance. So he could also rebalance really, really quickly as well.
Mm.
So it's like he became an accidental healer by doing martial arts, and it's kind of both sides of the story then. And I think it's a really juicy place to kind of explore because again, right or wrong, yin and yang, however you look at it, I think that these are all paths towards something.
Maybe it's just established or created the martial aspect because, or it was all the time there, but just discovered kind of thing, because there was a lot of war here and there, and they need to balance the universe or the society or the people, just as a tool to rebalance.
I think that there is an argument, and I've got no direct experience of this, but when you are in really difficult times, I think the opportunity to find internal balance becomes even more important. But
Like this
it's
stuff.
an yeah, you know, when everything is running beautifully, when there's no issues, then there's kind of very little incentive to do any work to find those places because you're just sitting there in your beautiful little space and go. Um, and so I think it becomes very interesting again that if you consider what people must be doing in order to support their mental well-being, in order to support their physical well-being when they're really in difficult situations, you can see how that could have huge benefit. I mean, was it Viktor Frankl?
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
you know, and the stuff that he came out with. I think there is so much learning in this area that you can pick up from so many places. And I think that, you know, I hear certain Qigong teachers saying, "Oh no, this is the only true path," and things like this. And you're kind of going, "No, I think that there are as many true paths as there are people,
Yeah.
but there are many frameworks that help us to understand and to move through the landscape more easily."
Mm. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Um, Even the combination with different things, like I can just talk for myself. So,
Mm,
when I'm in the Wing Chun area, there's a practice which is like I would say or describe it in very a beginner words like sticky hands, where you just have a feeling practice, like oh, when do the person move up, down, left, right, whatever, and that feels like a mirror from myself, like,
mm.
or reminds me to your saying when I practice on your guidance, practice how it feels for you, how it feels right for you, how it feels good for you, and don't take yourself into this enforcement of the structure of the practice, because that will maybe be negative energy kind of thing, or create an imbalance. So when I have an imbalance with the sticky hands, I have a punch in my face, right? So and that has transformed to maybe the self-love thing when you force yourself in a qigong practice and maybe have pains afterwards. Um, yeah, it's just obvious that you always need to practice how you are able to practice the practice structure and how it feels like. So yeah. So the question
Yeah.
which raises up and aims in the different directions, when do you know or when do you feel that it's right or wrong? Or if there's no right or wrong, when do you feel if it's good or not so good for you?
Um,
Because I guess people are out there, sorry, thank you, you can continue,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
who don't feel themselves anymore or not at this level of detail, I would say.
I think that there's a piece here for me that is about we and I think this is absolutely demonstrated by the sticky hands thing and the push hands and all of the kind of related practices. This is about you in relation to somebody else.
Yeah.
Um, the example that immediately springs to mind. I practice in a yurt. A yurt is the best place in the world to cheat at meditation because there are no windows, so you can't get visually distracted, but you can hear everything that's happening around you. So quite often when people will come and work with me, one of the techniques that I'll use is I'll ask them to sit there and listen to the birds. And what happens is you can't look at the birds, there are no windows, so you just sit there and listen. And in listening, you put your awareness outside, and it means that all of the noise in the head can just kind of disappear off because you're just listening to the birds. And then if you want to mess with them a little bit, I shouldn't I shouldn't admit this one probably, but it's the question of did you realize the birds are listening to you? Um, if you talk to musicians, if you talk to performers, performers are in response to the audience. There is always interaction. The magic happens in relation to. Um, and I think this is one of the issues that I find frustrating. And this is something that, you know, if you talk about spiritual bypassing, if you look at the kind of spiritual echo chambers that seem to be more and more existing now, people seem to be disappearing into places that there is no challenge. Um, And I think actually we need the challenge in order to see how we respond, because it is us in relation to. When you play sticky hands, it's two people listening to each other and responding to each other. In every situation that you're in, it's you listening and responding. And you know, as soon as you make statements like, "Well, that's not my problem," what you've just done is you've just put a barrier up and prevented yourself from learning from a situation. It may not be your problem, but it is something that you can do something with. And I think this is a central part that exists within both martial arts as a pure martial art practice, and also it should exist more in Qigong. We should be in response to, in relation to, more of the time, and not just disappearing into a beautiful, fluffy, pink, love-filled world or whatever it is we call it.
How can that be? How can that concrete be to adapt that more into the Qigong world?
I think the problem is that a lot of people, when they first come across Qigong, the first thing they want to do is escape from the noise in their head, escape from the narrative, escape from the suffering, escape from the difficulty. I think quite a lot of people, when they come looking for healing, they are there's kind of an attractiveness to that place that you can escape to, and it's a really valid part of the process. But in that process of escaping to, at some point we need to open out from, so that we can recognize our own position in it. You know, this is if you think of like if you think of a scenario, I quite often use the idea of the kindergarten or the primary school playground.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong in that space, both parties would want to be listened to. You need to you need to separate and listen. That's part of the practice. We need to pull ourselves away, take a moment, put, take ourselves away from the thing that is stimulating us in a negative way. But then that thing is still there, and so we can hide from it for our whole for the rest of the time we're there, or we can re-engage with it in a different way. And I think that too often these practices can get stuck in the hiding from, as opposed to the re-engaging with.
Yeah. Resonates. Uh, yeah, when you get over this pain stuff or maybe burnout, where I can talk about, um, it's very comfortable to have just quietness when you practice Qigong, right? And you
Mhm.
feel comfortable and you don't want to go out of this. of this fluffy, puffy room.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess there's a point. I guess there's a point, and you feel it. It was for me so to go again outside of the room, but it needs a little bit of power and braveness, I would say, to open the door from this room and going out in the world. But you need to feel kind of equipped that you can leave the room. So how can I, for example, yeah, get the equip or the skills to leave the room? What do you think?
It feels like it feels like you will never have the perfect set of tools. I think people
Haven't
always
said
look.
perfect.
Oh yeah, I know you didn't. I know you didn't. But the image that came to mind is that I've kind of been over here and something's happened, and my response is to swing all the way over to the other side. So I've been over to the left side, I've swung all the way to the right side, and I'm currently hiding in the right side, going, I'm just going to stay here and I'm going to be quiet. But I still need to come back and address the thing that's happened. But I don't need to be out there being confrontational. I can go out and experience it, and I can still retreat to a quiet place. I can move between these two places. I don't need to be stuck in one or the other. Actually, what I'm looking for is a middle space. What I'm looking for is a space in which I'm able to actually observe everything. I'm able to be fully aware, but I'm also not needing to either overreact to it or hide from it, which are kind of the two extremes that sit there. And this is why I think the idea that we have within the Hersha hands, within the prayer position, where we allow the base of the wrist to rotate and the tips of the fingers to rotate, but the base of the fingers stays steady, becomes such an interesting piece. Because what that says is that it's okay for there to be the base of the wrist relating to the physical experience. It's okay for there to be physical experience. It's okay for there to be pleasure. It's okay for there to be pain.
Yeah. I
Um, but we can keep that chi, which relates to the base of the fingers. Um, we don't need to chase that experience. We don't need to give that chi. And the same way the tips of the fingers, it's okay for there to be worries. It's okay for there to be stress. It's okay for there to be all kinds of narratives and beliefs going on in our head. But if we don't continually nourish them with our energy, we can find a more centered space. We can notice our narrative, but we don't need to act on our narrative.
Hmm.
Um, and so to me, that is coming back into that space that is neither being triggered or hiding, it's being present. Um, and a lot of people will give it lip service and say, "Oh yeah, you just need to be in the now moment or the present moment or stuff like that." But actually, that is something that it's like you're on a kid's swing, and it's okay to be in the middle bit, but unfortunately, someone keeps pushing you, and it's just like you need to accept that. You will go either side. You will want to run away. You will want to hide. You will want to engage. You will want to do all of these things, but there is a balance point that sits within the middle, and occasionally we find those points. And I think that is the place that we really invite people into within the Qigong practice. And I'd say that that is probably in my experience of martial arts, that's the place that you want the martial art to take you to. It's that place of just a centered state of awareness, but the process by which you do it is probably slightly more on the fighty side and the sense of I can cope with it than on the running away, I'm going to hide from it side that may sit within some of the kind of less martial Qigong practices.
Yeah, happy to that you came back to martial with this, because that's exactly what I guess every martial art practitioner should learn. And I guess that's basically the philosophy of every martial, or almost every martial, to don't attack because your ego tells you. Like the old movie Karate Kid, don't attack because you can, just, yeah, being in balance, acting in balance,
Mm.
not reacting. So,
Yeah, simple as that.
yeah. So. Yeah, thank you for this talk. I guess we come just to a close because it feels like rounded. So, yeah, I would say thank you for listening or watching. And we will bring next week an interview with another Qigong teacher online. So stay tuned and see you next week.